Michelle.
And I'm Lucy.
Welcome to a special episode. We don't have an intro.
No.
Just welcome.
One day we'll write one, a proper
Maybe.
one.
Probably not.
And today, the Archaeology of Bosworth Field.
Really? Do they know where Bosworth Field is? I thought they didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the problem is that they thought it was one place. That's where they've put the visitor centre, and now they decided it's somewhere else. So,
Oops.
yeah. I sort of feel we're grinding towards the end of... I don't know why I think that, because we've got another year to go, but I still feel we're grinding towards the end of Henry VII's season. So
why grinding, though? Grinding,
All right.
Grinding implies
Skipping.
It's not fun anymore.
Skipping
There we
towards
go.
the end. And there are certain things that you think, well, that's got to go in Henry VII. You can't shove that into Henry VIII. So Bosworth it is.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to be in Henry VIII at all.
No, I expect Henry VIII was sick of hearing his dad wittering on about Bosworth.
Henry probably would have to brag about it because that's what got him the crown.
That's what got him
It would
there.
be very different. Yeah.
I wonder if the story of the war was the same at the beginning of his reign as it was at the end. Or whether his part in it just got braver and braver as if there was nobody else there.
Yep. That's exactly
and then
what
I raced
happened.
through everybody, slashing away. Yeah.
You should have seen it. That guy went flying out of his saddle like 18 feet.
Well, apparently not, according to the archaeology. In 1999, a database was set up to make it easier for people to record any finds they found in the Bosworth area. That's
Oh my
for both
gosh, it was online?
I should
In
imagine
1998?
so. Both archaeologists and people who just stumble across something, you can both add to it. If you find anything interesting. And in that 1 year, it was 99, I don't know why I said 98. In that 1 year, there were 13,500 objects were registered.
13,500.
There's a lot of stuff still knocking around in that area.
Yeah. Oh, that's a surprising number. But I guess if they didn't know if that was Bosworth Field.
Most people don't bother to report something. If they find anything like a buckle, then you probably wouldn't bother to report it. But,
yeah, how would you know if that's part of a battle?
Yeah. Unless it's got an insignia on that indicates a noble of some sort.
Yeah.
You might not. I mean, it could be a farmer that's just dropped his buckle. I don't know why you'd lose your buckle, but that's probably why your buckle would drop off.
I just got a vision of the oxen tearing off and him getting caught in the plow.
Well, I'm sure that happened. But it wasn't all people like John de Vere and Francis Lovell. I don't know why I chose Francis Lovell. He was just watching, wasn't he? The vast majority of people in the battlefield were ordinary English, Welsh and Frenchmen, and their story needs to be heard as well. So,
Yeah.
if you find a buckle, tell someone.
At least it would give you an idea of numbers.
Yeah.
That would have been handy.
And obviously, if it's a foreign coin or something very military, it's almost certainly going to be something to do with the battle.
I was about to sing Martin Schwartz, but he's not in this one. Not yet.
Not yet. Not
Dope.
yet. And the archaeology draws into question some of the assumptions that people have taken for granted about the battle, which is always fun. We like that.
What did we take for granted about the battle?
Where people were, who was there.
I was going to say, who won?
Well, now we are getting revisionist.
It was actually Richard, but then he was assassinated.
Yes.
Back to London.
We have seen how Henry marched up from Milford Haven with the help of Rhys ap Thomas, John Savage and the Stanleys, and how Richard III stayed in Nottingham and then moved on to Leicester. But why did they fight in Bosworth Field in particular?
I just assumed that's how fast they could travel, and that's where they ended up.
Just blundered into each other.
Well, they were both heading to each other, but that's where the two met. Or did one actually stop and set up somewhere and wait for the other?
Henry got there first, and he I don't know if he set up necessarily, but he was the first one to be able to check out the terrain, work out what was possible.
And be like, okay, this one's fine. We'll start here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And there might be a reason, we'll talk about it in a minute, well, there might be a good reason for choosing that particular shape of terrain. A sort of bowl shape.
Ah, be on the high ground and you get to shoot farther with your arrows.
Well, you'd think so, but we'll come to that.
I'm wrong about everything today.
No, it makes perfect sense militarily, but there might be a different, plan. So we'll see. Henry camped near Merivale Abbey as a guest of the abbot. And we know that partly because compensation was given to Merivale Abbey soon after the battle for, quote, losses to their corns and grains by us and our company at our late victorious field of our due recompense on our behalf, unquote.
Oh.
He didn't just say it was a battle, victorious battle.
Yeah, and we do want to say that corn did not mean corn. Corn was the name for any grain at the time. Corn didn't become, like, quote-unquote, corn, which is maize, until it came from the New World. Yeah, no, it's
different in England. Corn is grain still.
Oh, really?
Sweet corn is maize.
Oh, okay. We just call it corn over here. Corn's just corn.
Yeah, well, it comes from there, I suppose. We've got to differentiate.
Yeah, everything over here is different. We call it corn even though it's maize. And then it's wheat, barley, etc. We very much separate those out.
Mm. Well, there's corn that covers them all, and separate them. He also recompensed several local villages, implying not only that his men had trampled their crops, but possibly had been billeted on them. Because I can't imagine the abbey would have had room for everybody.
Oh, yeah, where would they... So what, they just trampled down the field?
The villagers might have taken them in, I suppose.
I hope it was wheat, because then it would be like 4 feet tall, and you could make your little mazes from one tent to another. That would be a fun camping trip.
It would, actually, yes. Not very comfy for your tent, though, on all those spiky...
Well, no, you trample them down like a crop circle. So it's a nice cushy number.
Crop circles aren't trampled down. They just happen.
Okay.
Well, they happen round here anyway.
They were big in the 90s and then they just stopped.
Yes, weird that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now everybody wasn't born in the 90s and listening to us is like, what's a crop circle?
Well, round here it was a man named Chris, apparently. With a plank.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here figured it out. Who was doing it? It was all over.
Be that man named Chris.
Yeah, the second Chris.
Yeah.
Chris's clone.
Yeah, sorry, younger people.
Time for you to learn contemporary studies. That's what I call anything that's before or after World War II. Contemporary studies.
Henry may have been planning to march down Watling Street to get to London, but he may have thought that would be pushing his luck.
And Watling Street is your A5? I5?
Is it A5? I can't remember. It's still, you can still travel along it.
Yeah. We should.
I mean, an A road is not the most exciting holiday.
No, but on the progress of how they got into London.
True. Does that mean we got to stop at Walsingham Abbey and give thanks?
Yeah.
We had made it this far without any retaliations, but the likelihood of him reaching London unopposed was pretty remote.
Like non-existent.
Yeah, well, he was worried that Richard's forces would come round and cut him off at the rear.
Flank him.
He wouldn't be able to get back, yeah.
It takes a long time to turn an army.
Yeah.
People may be listening.
Unless you suddenly realise you're surrounded, in which case you just leg it.
Yes. So an army is actually set up in kind of battalions of type. So you can't just have everybody just spin around and have the same defensive posture or fighting ability. You actually have to get the whole army as a whole to turn. So it takes a long time for an army to pivot.
Yeah, well, I suppose if they came across Richard's forces ahead of them and thought, oh, right, battle starts, and then you suddenly think, hang on, I can hear something behind us. Not what you want.
No.
We're told that a local landowner advised Henry about the terrain of Bosworth, it must have seemed as good a place as any, really. It seems odd that Henry should have chosen Merivale Abbey to stay at. I mean, yes, the abbot seems to have welcomed him, but the abbey had very strong Yorkist leanings.
Oh.
It had been in the Ferrers family since 1148, and Agnes Ferrers was married to Walter Devereux, who we heard in the Welsh Connection episode, was holding Edmund Tudor prisoner in Carmarthen Castle when he died.
Yeah.
But some of the land around the abbey was owned by the Harcourt family, and they were Tudor supporters. And Sir Robert Harcourt became Henry's banner bearer when Sir William Brandon was cut down. I don't know whether you set up a substitute banner bearer or just somebody who's around just grabs it
and goes.
Yeah.
I would assume someone who's around, because you don't just have some guy running around you. Are you dead yet? Are you dead yet? Are you dead yet?
Around that, waiting to catch it.
Yeah.
Polydore Virgil tells us, quote, "After he had wandered around a long while and could not find it, he, Henry, fearfully came to a certain hamlet more than 3 miles away from his camp, so as not to fall into a trap. He did not dare ask the way of anybody, and he spent his night there, not so afraid of his present danger as of that yet to come," unquote. So that was the time when he went off alone and his men didn't know where he was. I think he's probably talking to William Stanley.
Yes.
I think it must have been then, because otherwise he'd had 5,000 men with him, and you can't be incognito.
Which side are you coming down on? I don't know yet.
Yes, stop hassling me. Around the village of Sheppey Magna, 3 miles from Merivale, a detectorist found some round shot and a Portuguese coin dated from between 1438 and 1481. So that's Alfonso V. That implies that Virgil was right and that Henry and his men were encamped in that area.
Right.
Because what's a Portuguese coin doing in the middle of the English countryside?
Yeah.
Following these finds, a group of archaeologists surveyed the area and they found a lead alloy mount that was part of a heraldic device of the Mordants. And Sir John Mordaunt was wounded at the Battle of Barnet, and we know he was at Bosworth, and he was a commander at the Battle of Stoke. So it's like you sort of knew he was in Bosworth, but now you know he's in Bosworth because there is his heraldic device. They also found a lead Catherine wheel-shaped button that probably belonged to Sir John Scott. I don't know how they knew it belonged to Sir John Scott unless the Catherine wheel is his logo.
I am looking up what a Catherine wheel is.
Oh, it's that horrible torture device where people had their legs broken on it.
Oh, God.
Nasty.
So why did they have that with them?
This is a logo on a heraldic device on a button.
That's not a cool device. Why would you have that?
You get some fairly unpleasant things, don't you?
Jeez. And it's named Catherine after a saint. Saint Catherine was tortured on it. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done, people. Ugh.
We've just done an episode on Aretino.
Yes.
The Italian, I don't know what you call him really, writer. We'll say writer.
Scandalmonger.
And yes, there's a picture that used his face that was St. Bartholomew, and he carries a knife and his flayed skin about with him.
Yeah, right. If I got tortured to death, I would not want you to celebrate what tortured me.
Well, the cross. I mean, it's everywhere. Right, Sir John Scott, yes. He'd been a member of Edward IV's household, and he'd been sent by Edward to get Henry Tudor back from Brittany. He was then loyal to Richard III, and his mother was a Herbert, related to the Herberts with whom Henry lived as a child. So what is his button doing in Henry's camp? Did he change sides?
He changed sides. Of course he did. Henry's lovely.
He certainly doesn't seem to have suffered in Henry's reign. But without this button, we wouldn't even be questioning his loyalty. You'd just assume he was probably on Richard's side, because that makes most sense. But this one little button in the wrong place makes you question everything about him.
From everything we read about the Herberts, it sounded like they honestly treated and felt like Henry was part of the family.
It comes across that way. Whatever he said later about, I was a prisoner. He was a prisoner, but
at the same time,
It could have been worse.
Yes, it could have been. We've heard about worse.
We've heard about worse when people are wards, not prisoners.
Yes. So maybe they decided, hey, they felt like he was family, and that was enough. There was enough people still alive to pull for his side.
Yeah, I mean, you've either got Richard, who's an unknown entity really for you, or you've got the lad that lived in your house.
Yeah.
All those years.
Mm-hmm. And Richard's already done some stuff that's making people question, like, what is he doing?
Where are those boys?
Yeah.
For instance.
Yeah.
Weren't there boys? I'm sure there were boys.
What happened to Buckingham?
Yes. So was it Henry who chose the battlefield, and was he luring Richard into a trap? Well, hopefully the answer is yes, otherwise I'm really wasting your time. We know that Henry met William Stanley, although frustratingly, obviously, we don't know what they said.
Well, he probably said, I'll wait till the very last minute and then I'll decide. And Henry went, what?
No! Yes, think about my heart, for goodness sake.
Yeah, jeez.
Was the plan to have Henry and his army out in the field saying, here we are, come and get us? Then when Richard came sweeping down, William would be ready to swoop down and smash Richard's army. Maybe there was no ambiguity about which side the Stanleys were on. Maybe it had all been meticulously planned and it all worked out very nicely. And this might explain why Henry came down off the ridge, because as you said, you want to be on high ground.
Yes.
But he didn't. He came down off the ridge. He had been in a good position.
So he set
Richard
the
would
trap.
have had to run uphill. Yeah, he's the goat tied to a post.
He's the bait.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
It does seem as if this interpretation of events might be the right one. There's no other reason for Henry to leave himself so exposed than that. He was almost a decoy until Stanley arrived.
But then wouldn't he have written about how clever he was then?
Yeah, I think he would have mentioned it afterwards.
Yeah.
This is speculation based on what archaeology tells us he did.
Yes.
And if it's the case, he would have to be very sure of William Stanley, because how did he know that Richard and Stanley hadn't concocted this plan up between them? You tell him to come off the ridge, then I'll have the high ground. Yes, he'd have to be absolutely sure of William.
And then they would write about how clever and strategic they were.
Yes.
I mean, if he wants to be seen as the best king ever, he has to turn Bosworth into not just a battle victory, but a propaganda victory. And he didn't.
Except that, would that mean then that William Stanley had won the battle rather than Henry?
Ah.
I mean, if he was told, you just stand there and bleat for a bit, waiting for the lion to come, and I'll come and do it all.
Okay.
It's a hell of a risk.
It really is, yes.
Yeah, and what if Stanley mistimed it? He might have had good intentions, but just arrived too late.
Yeah.
We know there were several skirmishes on the 2 days before the battle itself, leading to several deaths, including, and here comes a bit of a rabbit hole, Thomas Hampden. And I only mention him because I went to school in Hampden House. And the house that's there now is mostly Elizabethan, but it housed John Hampden, who refused to pay his ship tax, which led indirectly to the fall of Charles I. I used to be obsessed with John Hampden. So many books about him. Well, although Hampden was a Buckinghamshire man, where Hampden House is, he also had lands in Essex, and in fact many of the men who died on those 2 days of skirmishes came from that area, very close to where John de Vere had his land. And it's possible they were travelling to Henry's camp to offer their assistance to de Vere. But sadly they didn't make it. They were killed in skirmishes beforehand. An alternative theory was they were on Richard's side and had been sent to assess Henry's forces and the lie of the land.
Oh, we were so close to assassinate, but they assessed instead. Come on, people, be clever.
Well, I'm sure if they came across him.
If you see an opportunity, take it.
But it's unfortunate they gave their lives in the run-up to a battle, and we don't even know which side they were on.
Oh, yeah.
So what of Richard? It's widely assumed his men were on Ambion Hill. It's not really a hill, it's a sort of curved ridge. That's where the Battlefield Heritage Centre is today.
And you're saying it now needs to be moved?
I don't know. They probably think, it cost us a fortune to put it up here. Richard himself might well have been in a manor house at Sutton Cheney, or he may have set up his royal tent. However, there are very few finds on Ambion Hill. I mean, it may be that once the battle was over, Henry's men ransacked the place and took everything away. Richard Mackinder, who wrote the book The Archaeology of Bosworth, thinks that Ambion Hill isn't a likely spot for Richard to have stopped for the simple reason that they'd been short of water. Quite apart from the men, it would be necessary for the horses to have water. So he thinks it's more likely that Richard's camp was between Sutton Cheney and Stapleton, where there is a watercourse.
Ah, okay.
It's these little things that it might not occur to you. You just think, oh yeah, hill.
Hill.
Yeah, this
Hill,
is where
it's
you
up.
put things. But you need water.
Yes.
Also, he thinks that the area recorded by chroniclers variously as Anbeam, Amion and Anbine might be a corruption of Anabeam, meaning a one-beam bridge, rather than Ambion Hill.
Was there a one-beam bridge?
There's a river near Stapleton, so there might have been a small bridge at that point.
Okay.
It's long been claimed that Richard went to church to hear Mass at Sutton Cheney. It doesn't quite ring true, since he would have had his own chaplain. It's probably more likely some of his men went to hear Mass, which I think you would do the day before you're about to
Yeah?
risk your life. The day of the battle, Richard seems to have moved off the main road and onto what might have been a farm track, and this took him to a ridge which shielded him from the sight of Henry's men, so he could deploy his troops in secret. I mean, you don't really want your opponent seeing exactly how you're setting everything up and shouting, "Oh, you go over there."
You'll attack this person and you'll attack this person. Don't worry if your staff is broken. They won't know.
And all the cardboard soldiers just stand up on the ridge.
Which, again, was used in World War II. Cardboard tanks.
We hear he didn't have time for breakfast, which I completely understand. I don't think I'd be eating breakfast on a day like that.
No, well, stress,
Whether
no.
I have time
but
or
you
not,
might be thinking, I really need to make sure I have enough fuel to make it through the day.
I don't know. I can't eat when I'm worried.
Neither can I.
And I would be worried.
Yeah.
There was a cairn built where Richard was said to have taken his last drink, but that was put up in 1813. It's known as King Dick's Well, and there's an inscription, quote, "Richard III, King of England, slaked his thirst with water drawn from this well when engaged in most bitter and furious battle with Henry, Earl of Richmond, and before being deprived of both his life and his sceptre on the morning of the 22nd of August, A.D. 1485, unquote. And this is on Ambion Hill.
Okay.
And actually, there's no proof he was ever anywhere near the place.
Okay.
Never mind slaking his thirst. There is an old well near where Richard Mackinder thinks Richard's camp was, but it's no longer visible. And maybe that was the last place that Richard took a drink. Ooh. If indeed it's necessary for us to know where he last took a drink, which I'm not quite sure about. It's possible that if William Stanley was positioned where Richard Mackinder thinks he was, he'd have a good view of both sides, which seems fitting in the circumstances.
Yeah.
The battle would have started early in the morning, because battles usually did if they could. And that's simply because it's cooler, and dehydration is quite a problem. The Duke of Norfolk, John Howard, on Richard's side, came out of a track and rode up a rise as if showing himself to the opposition in the hope of drawing out Henry's right side.
I'm the bait.
Yes. And this was commanded by John de Vere and the French soldiers. I suppose that makes sense to use the French ones because they're the only ones who are actually soldiers, aren't they?
Yes. Yes. Do they have any Germans this time?
No, I don't think so. Don't think so. Editing Lucy here. It turns out there might have been some Germans. Some historians think there were, but nobody seems to know the exact number or where the German soldiers had come from. Since both Howard and de Vere were Norfolk landowners, and there was a certain amount of history between the two families, this may have been a sort of grudge match. there have been several finds along the track Norfolk is thought to have used, including horse pendants. So you can learn a lot by them. Polydore Virgil wrote, quote, "There was a marsh between them, which Henry deliberately left on his right to serve his men as a defensive wall." I think that's dangerous because you might just end up being pushed into it. But anyway, in doing this, he simultaneously put the sun behind him. The king, as soon as he saw the enemy advance past the marsh, ordered his men to charge. Suddenly raising a great shout, they attacked first with arrows, and their opponents, in no wise holding back from the fight, returned the fire fiercely. When it came to close quarters, however, the dealing was done with swords, unquote. I think that's probably a man who's never been into battle, assuming what battle's like, because that's how I'd assume it would happen. First the arrows, then you go in and whack at them with the sword.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
There's no longer a marsh there, but the field is pretty soggy even in summer. So, I mean, with your interest in geology, it will interest you to know there are deposits of alluvium in that area, implying that there was a watercourse.
Yes.
There. It was marshy. So, yeah, a lot of things that Polydore Virgil... I mean, he was getting it from Henry, presumably. He was getting it straight from the horse's mouth, so Henry knew where the marsh was. Before the area was surveyed by detectorists in 2009, it was thought that the battle started with an opening volley of arrows. But then you'd expect to turn up lots of arrowheads, and that hasn't happened. But you feel they must be there, but apparently a concerted effort to find them hasn't happened yet. And I don't know why. They've had 540 years to look.
Well, I'm just thinking about the arrowheads. Did everybody have metallic-headed arrows? And the reason I ask is because I read in another battle that the lower orders that could fight with bows and arrows, they weren't provided. They had to create them, so they made wooden arrows, so no arrowheads.
Ah, I was thinking when we were doing, I think it was Esteban's episode, when we were doing Columbus, they took the arrowheads off the arrows, the Native Americans, because they discovered they went through their armour better, or their clothes, and they sort of...
Yeah, because you're pulling your military from Joe Blow. And they quite often had to bring their own weapons.
Or Jean Bleu.
Yeah.
Or Joe App Blue. They found plenty of lead round shot there. So lots of guns.
Which is also a surprise.
But these would have been fired from cannons in a sort of grape shot method.
Oh, okay.
They're quite small. You can fit them in the palm of your hand. Reconstructions of these cannons show that it can fire over 1,500 metres. Well, after the initial volley, hand-to-hand combat started, not only using swords and billhooks, but handguns. Small lead shot has been found on the battlefield.
And the handguns are single shot, though.
They are. I'd have thought it can't be actually in sort of hand-to-hand combat, because by the time you're standing in the middle of all the people slashing away, trying to fiddle with this damn gun and get it going and load it, you're going to be dead. They must presumably be off somewhere, off to the side somewhere, shooting in.
If it's like what I've seen reenactors, they actually don't use the guns until they're up close. They have two loaded, they shoot the gun, and then they fall back on their other weapons. And that's because of the range. Gosh, what is his name? There's a historian that does all this.
Well, that seems a waste, doesn't it? If you've got a weapon that only works twice.
Yes. But when it does enough damage to take that person out with one shot rather than 50 sword hits. And then what do? You don't have time to run to the outer edge to reload.
No. First Norfolk and Oxford engaged. And according to Virgil, Oxford had put his force in a wedge shape to avoid them being crushed by Norfolk's larger force. And I was trying to work out the physics of this. Would it avoid them being crushed? I can see that pushing an object through water you'd want a wedge-shaped thing, but these are people. What I think it was for was to force Norfolk's men apart, so they were no longer fighting in a cohesive unit.
Okay.
And then communications would break down because you've got your enemy right in the middle of you.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not... Although I'm bringing down all the people who seem to know about these things, like the new kid on the block saying, no, you've all got it all wrong. But anyway, Norfolk was fatally wounded, possibly by John Savage, who we'll do a cameo on.
That would be a cool last name to have. Savage.
Yes, Savage.
Although I'd still prefer Nan Fan.
If you married a Nan Fan, you wouldn't be able to say, oh, yes, I'm Mrs. Nan Fan, would you? You'd have to say, I'm Mrs. Nan Fan.
Nan Fan. Mrs. Nancy Nan Fan.
The Song of Lady Bessie, which is a poem we came across in the Stanley episodes, said that Norfolk died by a mill. And there is a mill field in that area where there have been a few high-status finds, including a gold ring and a gilded heraldic badge.
Ooh.
An heraldic badge is interesting. It shows a bird facing right with open wings. And the fact that the bird is facing right, or the wrong way, could well show that the owner was illegitimate.
Right.
Now, there's been speculation. It can never be anybody normal, can it? It's
No.
always got to be somebody special. So there's been speculation that this may be the bastard son of Richard III himself.
Ooh.
Now, this whittles it down to two possible candidates. John of Gloucester, who was recognised by Richard as, quote, our dear bastard son, unquote.
Jesus, people.
Yes. And there's another one, Richard of Eastwell, who was a bricklayer from Kent. And he claimed to be Richard's son. He was a bricklayer who could read Latin. So, I mean, that's a bit strange.
Yes.
He said he was visited 4 times a year by a mysterious man who paid for his education and his upbringing. He said he was taken to Richard's tent at Bosworth, where the king told him he was his son and he could watch the battle if he liked. And he said that Richard promised to acknowledge him if he won the battle. When you think, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But he advised him to keep stum if Henry won, which is very good advice.
Yes, actually.
But it's all very convenient,
Yes.
isn't it?
He will never be able to refute this.
Yeah, he told me I'm his son, and actually he said I ought to be king.
Yeah, I'm going to be king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Professor Schurer, who has researched the owner of this badge, claims that the illegitimate son wasn't Richard's, but Edward IV. Maybe Arthur Plantagenet. More about him next season. I mean, the speculation becomes even more speculative, because it's even gone on to say, did Arthur, realising that Norfolk's injuries was fatal, put his jacket under his head, and that's where the heraldic badge fell off? You say, well, why not? What the hell?
Yeah.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
No grave pit has been discovered in the area.
Right, and what would they have done with the bodies?
Well, there's anecdotal evidence. A man remembered a group of navvies digging a ditch in World War II, and they came across skeletons with horrendous injuries, but they just covered them over again.
Well, yeah, because that could have been from anything, though. Vikings.
Well, I don't know, a lot of them with horrendous injuries. It does imply a battle or a really unpleasant massacre.
Yeah.
Unpleasant massacre. I didn't
Is
mean
there
to be
a
unpleasant,
pleasant-
did I?
We massacred that wine barrel. There's a pleasant one.
That's true. But it's strange that archaeology in the area hasn't uncovered them. I mean, it's not as if they, unless obviously they're digging them up,
Yeah.
made the air get to them.
Did they bury all the bodies is the question.
They did move, many of the bodies were dug up again and moved to consecrated land.
Right.
And that happened at Towton, definitely. Polydore Virgil said that the bodies were moved to the church at Dadlington. And you wonder, all of them? I mean, there must have been hundreds. Were they all moved to Dadlington? In which case they must have had a hell of a big cemetery at Dadlington Church. But by 1511, indulgences were sold to pay for a chapel, quote, to which the bodies or bones of the men slain at Bosworth Field have been brought, unquote.
The length of time it would take for how many people? Actually, how many people do we know did die at Bosworth? No? Do we have even a close estimate?
Don't know.
Let's
Don't
look
know.
it up.
Yeah, look it up.
Ooh, that would take a long time.
How many?
Well, there are ranges, different ranges. So approximately 1,000 Richards seems to be the most common. And then 100 to 200 for Henry Tudor's army. Nobody can seem to agree on Henry 100.
But that's a lot of bodies to fit into Dadlington churchyard.
Yeah, so I'm guessing about 1,200 in total.
There's some dispute as to whether Thomas Stanley was actually at the battle. The calendar for papal registers said that Thomas didn't meet Henry until 2 days after the battle. Virgil says there were 3,000 Stanley men under the command of William. And that fits with what we know of the Stanleys' tactics of splitting their allegiances, so they were always on the winning side. But the Ballad of Bosworth puts Thomas on the hill, and that threatened Richard so much that he issued the order to behead Lord Strange, Thomas's son.
Right.
Another source says the Stanley brothers had their armies in 2 different parts of the battle, north and south. Archaeology places the Stanley armies south of Richard's and Henry's. So, I suppose you go with the archaeology.
Well, at least then there's physical evidence. But then physical evidence is even more up to interpretation.
Yes, given that we got the physical evidence about John Scott and we don't even know which side he was on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes physical evidence just complicates matters further. Richard's plan seems to have been to get Norfolk to draw Oxford away from the rest of the battle, and then Richard would come crashing down the middle, right up to Henry as quickly as possible before William Stanley could intervene. We know that Richard had his doubts about Stanley, but it really looks as if it's more than that, as if he expected him to side with Henry. Henry Percy, the Earl of Northumberland, was placed in such a position that he was facing Stanley, so he could push him back if he tried anything. So that went well. Richard and Northumberland were now close enough to Henry's troops to use the cannons, and round shot had been found in that area. What we don't know is whether Henry brought guns or whether all these came from Richard's army. Philip de Comines says the French equipped Henry with artillery, so he may have brought them from France. But they were big, heavy things. It can't have been easy to drag them all through Wales.
No.
I think after a while you just think, oh, dump them. It's too much effort.
We don't need these. It's
You'll
fine.
probably find a load of them just outside Haverfordwest in a heap. It's always been said, rather romantically, that when Richard realised that William Stanley was siding with Henry, he realised it was all or nothing and just went for it. It now seems the charge was pre-planned and had nothing to do with either the fear of Stanley or the distrust of Northumberland. A proper cavalry charge involved all the knights working in unison, very close together. And initially, ideally, depending on the lie of the land, but initially they would be out of sight. So you can set up without the
Right.
opposition seeing what you're up to. They would start by walking so they could all check they're in the right places. Since once you've got your visor down, you've very little vision.
Yeah.
You can't look round and you can't hear anything. Then trotting. And then by the time they came into sight, cantering. And they would spur their horses into a gallop just before they smashed into the opposing forces. And it wasn't usually something done on the spur of the moment. Richard's father, Richard Duke of York, had charged during the Battle of Wakefield with disastrous and fatal consequences, and Richard would probably have known this.
Yeah.
So it's not something to be taken lightly. Contemporary sources tell us that Richard first killed Sir William Brandon, the banner bearer, and then knocked Sir John Cheney off his horse, and he was the gentleman who was 6'7". Brandon has sometimes been seen as collateral damage on Richard's brave but foolhardy charge straight to Henry. But was Henry his target at all? As a psychological tactic, killing the banner bearer was a good move.
Yes, because then everybody thinks that the king is down too. Well,
Yeah.
then what are you fighting for?
Did Richard intend to turn his horse and have a go at Henry on his way back, though? A man who does jousting and battle reenactments said that it seemed logical to keep the opposition's banner in that small gap in your visor and head for it. Kill whoever you find around there and hope it's Henry.
Right, because you can't really see.
You can't see. You couldn't be able to pick out Henry necessarily from the group of people. But a colourful banner, you just keep it in this little letterbox
slit.
that you can see through. So William Brandon might not have been collateral damage. He might have been what he was heading for.
Target was.
And this is the moment when William Stanley leapt into action. He obviously had a sense of drama since he very much left it to the last minute.
And did he go tally-ho as he went down the hill?
Stanley! It seems that it was his plan to push Richard towards the marsh. So was Stanley waiting to see if Richard would kill Henry on the first charge, and it was only when he saw that he didn't that he made his move, because if Richard had killed Henry, Stanley could still claim he was on Richard's side.
Yes.
Just biding my time, the opportune moment. I mean, even if he had made plans with Henry that he intended to stick to, he'd have been an idiot to keep the faith once the man was dead.
Yeah. No, we're still supporting him. He's dead. I don't care.
Yeah, once I make a decision, I stick to it.
Oh, goodness.
And my brother sticks to the other one.
We will always win.
But Richard didn't kill Henry. He was himself killed, almost certainly by Rhys ap Thomas. Or if not him, then somebody else. But where did he die? The chronicler Molinet said Richard lost his horse in the marsh. Well, my kingdom for a horse, malarkey. Henry Tudor said he was killed in Sanderford, but no one's sure where that is. The name implies a ford crossing sand or a marsh. There was a Roman road that crossed the marsh, and it was there that in 2009 a badge was found that's now called the Bosworth boar. And we all know whose emblem was the boar, because the rat, the cat and Lovelaw dog ruled all England under a boar.
Yeah.
Hog. This is not conclusive proof that Richard was unhorsed at that site. He might have given the badge to somebody. So we might know where he died, or we might not, as with all these things. But how did he die? Once Richard's body had been dug up in that car park in Leicester and the bones cleaned, 11 injuries were found on his body. And some of these could be inflicted immediately after death. These injuries were 3 wounds at the back of the skull caused by a blade, a penetrating wound on the top of the skull caused by a pointed weapon that left bits of skull pointing inwards, a large hole under the back of the skull, that's the biggest wound, probably caused by a halberd, a wound at the bottom of the left side of the skull, probably by a sword, and this was probably the fatal one, a cut on the lower jaw, a hole in the right cheek, probably by a dagger, a tool mark on the right mandible, a cut on the 10th rib on the right, probably with a dagger, and a cut on the inside of the pelvis, and this entered the right buttock and went right through the body, and that was probably after death.
But where is his helmet?
Well, that's it. Yes, because there's a lot of injuries to the head.
Like, what happened? Did somebody come up, take off his helmet and said, have at her? Like,
well, I suppose once they'd got him, because he was off his horse, once they'd got him, someone could have cut the strap and taken the helmet off. It had a crown on it, so, I mean, you'd want it as a prize, wouldn't you? Or it's thought he was now fighting on foot. Apparently, if you've got scoliosis, you get very short of breath.
yes.
So short that you'd take your helmet off? I don't know. He might have been wearing the helmet and the blows were given with such force that...
It took the helmet off.
Yeah.
And then everybody went, ha, it's open. Hit.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different weapons involved.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people.
It looks as if, all right, Rhys ap Thomas killed him. We know that. That's safe.
But then everybody else
anywhere.
wanted to make sure he was dead.
And they could go home and say, well, actually, it was me.
Yeah.
I did it.
Well,
what of Henry Percy? What was he doing all this time? In his episode, we looked at several reasons why he might have decided not to help Richard, because Richard was becoming too powerful in the north and he was poaching Percy's servants. However, it may well be that he just didn't have time. As we've said, it's probable that Richard started the cavalry charge out of Henry's sight, so that might have been out of Percy's sight as well. So the first he'd have known about it was when they became visible cantering towards Henry. In just a few minutes, Richard might have been floundering in the marsh. Others of his men might have been in the same predicament. By the time Percy was in a position to do anything about it, Richard might already have been dead. I mean, there's a lot of mights in that sentence,
Yes.
I realise. Because we don't know for certain. We do know that Percy made a will before the battle, so it looks as if he intended to fight. But people also get executed after battle, so it's not a foolproof thing. So you could give him the benefit of the doubt and assume, he just was waiting and then thought, oh, whoops, he's dead. Whoopsie.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened after the battle? We weren't sure who actually put the crown on Henry's head. Reginald Bray found it under a hawthorn bush. But Fabian, who was writing near the time, said it was William Stanley who crowned Henry. Virgil said it was Thomas Stanley. But he was writing after William had been executed for treason, so... Yes, there's every reason to choose Thomas. The decent father-in-law rather than the greedy traitor. Henry was said to have climbed, quote, to the top of a little mountain to be crowned. And there is a farm nearby called Crown Hill Farm. And that name was given post-Bosworth. Before it had been called Garbrody's. But it seems odd he wouldn't go to a church. You'd think perhaps that would be a bit more godly. There's a church of St. Margaret nearby. I mean, maybe it's more dramatic to stand on the top of a mountain and do it. But anyway, crowned he was, and that was the end of the Plantagenets and the start of the Tudors, for better or worse. Archaeology has given us a different view of where the various parties pitched camp and lined up for battle. And if you're going to the area, I would recommend the book Bosworth, The Archaeology of the Battlefield, because Richard Mackinder provides a guide, which means you can go around the battlefield, reliving the 2.5 hours that changed the world. At least it made a bit of difference to our little part of it. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That is the completely unambiguous story of Bosworth Field. Now we know definitively exactly where everything happened and who did what to whom.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes.
They needed, or Louis XI, basically he had a commentator and a colour man off to the side like you do for a football match.
but would... I mean, in these circumstances, if the chronicler was saying, and Richard did really well. I mean, he lost, but he really should have won. Would his chronicle still be around after the Tudor era?
No.
He had the moral high ground anyway. That's for certain.
Yeah. He was the king after. Yeah. Don't know.
Not sure. Anyway, our usual silence at the end of the
as we think. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.